Nope. Don't shake. Don't shake. Don't shake. Hello, everyone. It is I, Dark Symphony 777, with the first review of 2023, and we're starting very, very strong. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, I actually wanted to get this specific video out like a week ago. However, the last couple of chapters, because it's a Super Paper Chopper I'm reviewing, they were really long, like really long. And it's like, how long can it be? And then I had to get through like a 60,000 word chapter yesterday. I wanted to try and burn through what I had because I was like out of backup videos of my Let's Play. But yeah, Super Paper Chopper is the review we are going to do. And I have no idea how to start this story out without saying, oh, excuse me. I was legitimately surprised at how good this story is, because if you actually watch my reviews on Paper Chopper and then also Paper Chopper Crystal Stars, they're the same. They're the same. They're in the same video, but this is different. I didn't really like those videos. I didn't not those videos. I didn't like those stories. Those stories were full of problems. Main character was a Sue. Loads of bloating. The implementation of the game mechanics into the story was very, very poorly done. It's just there was just so much nonsense. A lot of the characters weren't really that well written. But good God, good God, I thought coming into this last story of the trilogy, I thought it was gonna be more of the same, and I was legitimately blown away by how good this last story is. It's so surprising how much from the previous two stories this fixed, and it was just, and by the end of it, I was actually crying from the ending, and the story got me hooked, and like all the lore and all the story and the characters. I'm just like, is this the same author? It's like, I even looked at my phone. It's like, is this the same author? Is this the same author who did the first two stories, and those are really bad? It's like, it can't be the same author. It is the same author. Whoa. But yeah, let's get started with the story. So, as with the previous two stories, this story is more or less a basis based off an existing game, i.e., Super Paper Mario. Super Paper Mario was the third story of the Paper Mario series before it went downhill, and existed on the Wii. And it starred Mario going to this city called Flipside and trying to save the world from Count Bleck, who summoned this void to destroy all worlds out of a sense of nihilism. And the first act, because unlike the rest of the stories where it has a 2-act system, this story very clearly has a 3-act system. So basically, Act 1 is chapters. We're still going by by each part having multiple chapters. Chapters 1 to 8. Act 2 is chapters 9 to 16, and then Act 3 is chapters 17 to 20, and then that's it. And I think the 3-act system works much better than the 2-act system. That's just me. It does a very, very good job of incorporating all of the elements from Super Paper Mario into the game. Not perfectly. This story is not perfect. I will lay that out right from the bat. There are some minor issues, and one of the problems is the flipping mechanic. It's honestly inconsistently used. Like when the author writes the parts where they're platforming and stuff, the it's actually very very faithful to Super Paper Mario. But whenever there is a big fight, a big boss fight, the author kind of weirdly forgets that the whole game's supposed to be in 2D, and then just like a big old arena fighter, and like they're in like a big arena and they're just wailing on each other. Does that really break the story? No, but it's something that I thought I at least mentioned because it is the author is trying to stay truthful to the mechanics of the game, and that includes the boss, and then in the game included the boss fights, and the author doesn't really do that. However, I think honestly the author made the right decision. I think if the author kept it in like a 2D environment, it wouldn't really work out. Like you can tell in like the first couple fights in the beginning of the story because the story's really, really long. How long? The story's over 1,000,000 words. Like the first fight against Ochunks, the first fight against Bowser, it's treated in 2D because instead of like a big group of fight, big group versus one person, it's 1v1, and they're treated like primarily just side scroll, like the side scrolling in the game, and however, those are fine because those are just mainly 1v1, and it's just, but they're more entrenched into establishing kind of Chopper's character. Because guess what? Chopper got a really big character rework in the story. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But once we get past the first defeat of Tipral at the well, not Tipral, Dementio, at the end of chapter 8, it takes a big, big swing in lore, diving deeper into the lore of the Pixels. There's a gigantic secondary plot involving Turple and his backstory and his connections with Lady Timpani and Count Lumiere. Dementio's still kicking around. Like the story kind of basically makes it obvious that I wrote the prognosis, and that's actually it, and that's not a theory. It's implied in the game that Dementio was the one who wrote the Dark Prognosis. That's something that's never really confirmed in the game. That's just very, very heavily implied. But he's still kicking around. We also have another villain that was actually introduced in the previous story, Shade Doom, but he only shows up like one time and then he leaves. Tipperl has his little minions. He has Mimi, who has a crush on him. Ochongs, he gets Natasha. He instead of Mr. L at first, he gets like Dark Doom from Crystal Stars. He gets Fawful to team up, and then he gets like Mr. L and Dementio and mind controlled Meta Knight. And you really have that sense of grandeur to the story. I think that's what the story does really well. It has a sense of grandeur. Like the author knows it's supposed to be a finale because at the end the author was thinking like maybe I should do Sticker Star, and then probably he took one look at Sticker Star. It's like I ain't doing Sticker Star. Yeah, hell no, hell no. And try to give this story a grand sense of adventure. Like unlike the previous stories, which were just the plots are just basically a mix mash of elements from other games. Like in Paper Chopper 1, the main first half of it was just Paper Mario, but then you also had a chapter that was just basically a Gamma story from Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Adventure. And then the second half was mostly Sonic Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. There are some crossover elements in Super Paper Chopper, but they're more subdued. They're mainly just sequestered to their own little parts of the story and don't really intersect that much. Like, probably the two, like the main bulk of it is Super Paper Mario, but then it randomly incorporates South Park of all things. Like they do one of the they go to the over there, and then they run into like, you're probably thinking of the other NIMBYs over there. They're not like us, and you could tell that they're clearly based off those NIMBYs that we're introduced to are clearly based off the Canadians from South Park, even with their own Terrence and Phillip called Ference and Tillip. I'm not joking. Not joking. That is the path the author went with that. Um, there's also the author also another South Park thing is they bring like a South Park like a Paper Mario version of Al Gore. I honestly think that was a weird choice, but the author kind of made it work. Like, it's Man Bear Pig. I'm super cereal, but it's not. It's not. It's not Al Gore. It's Arcanine. Another big thing they incorporated is Castle Crashers. I think for the most part, the Castle Crasher stuff is actually done decently enough. Decently enough, not perfect, but eh. But it's good enough for what you're trying to do. The Castle Crusher stuff only appears in like three specific three specific parts of the story, so it's not that big a deal. So it's fine. Each chapter incorporates a five structure act, so it's basically like, oh, here's the first five acts. They usually end with a mini boss fight, and then a sixth one that has the boss of that chapter, and then the interlude, rinse and repeat. But there's a big but. Once the story gets going past the void closure the first time, and Tipral is trying to bring back the void, it gets the story takes everything that Paper Mario left behind. Like there's a lot of unanswered stuff in Super Paper Mario. Like, oh, how did Loveby come back to life? What's going on with Flick Cragley or Squirps? And this story kind of expands upon that role. They all have roles. We're even introduced to a lot of new characters, and a lot of them are really, really well done. And even gives time to shine of expanding the lore of Super Paper Mario in a way that doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just the author just shoving in random elements from other properties, like with the South Park thing or the Castle Crashers thing, because they actually feel natural, unlike in the previous two stories, where you can very obviously tell that the author just doesn't really have any creative ideas and just shoving them into it. So like with the South Park things, they're not a big element of the story. They're just side flavors. Same thing with the Castle Crosser stuff. They're not. It's not the whole point of the chapters. It's just an added side thing that just comes with it. And I think that's much better handled than the previous two stories in terms of the plot, because not only do we have time to really get situated with like all the elements, all the gameplay stuff, because they do add a lot of game, because the author is trying to still make this read like you're watching a gameplay. So it adds a lot of new gameplay stuff. Like they go to a cybernetic world and they have to go through like a running section where they have to avoid firewalls. It's actually pretty well done. It has a lot of humor. The humor is actually really good. But I'll talk about the main best thing at the end. Spoiler alert, it's about our little shadow chopper clone. Spoiler. Characters. Let's just move on to the characters. I like them for the most part. Here's the first big thing that the author actually fixed. Well, besides better incorporating, but I'll talk about that when I get to pacing, because I think that's better to talk about there. Chopper is completely fixed. He's no longer a suit character. Now, I want to go on to the side because I don't normally do this. I think this would be the first time I did this. The first time I actually respond on a video to a comment, and that's actually from Mechanical Oven on one of the videos. Now, I'm not going to review the whole. I'm not going to comment on everything that the author said, but there was one specific line in one of the comments that I at least wanted to address in this video, because I think it's actually pertinent to this video. And that is didn't the author didn't like the fact that I called Chopper a Sue, and he thought that it was because of the gameplay elements. And I say, No, nope. The reason I call Chopper a Sue in the first two stories is one, he didn't have a lot of character depth. He was just a kid. In the first story, he was just a kid. He was just taking a vacation to the Mushroom Kingdom, and it's like, oh, I'm to save the world. We don't know anything about him. We don't have any reason to care about him, and then we're just expected to just say, all right, he's saving the world? And then he gets like, in this story, he gets like multiple women who like barely do anything to care, and it just feels so forced. Like he gets Lady Bao, who only really starts crushing him because she finds him cute. Admittedly, this one feels the most natural. Bao is the type of person who would probably do something like that. He gets Casey, which is the Bubbles clone. Which, all right, fine. It's just a little crush. That's fine. Vivian is very uncomfortable because you're just recopying the character arc from her character arc from Dolls in Your Door. You had Barry, which makes sense again, just like Bao, because in that story, Barry's supposed to act more like Amy Rose, so her having a big crush thematically makes sense because all the Choppers, the other friends are supposed to be clones of Sonic characters. Barry's being Amy, so that makes sense. And then in Super, we have Lovey crush on him. However, that one, just like Bao and Barry, that one kind of makes sense. Barry Lovey kind of has like a weird sense of romance, and just like Bao, kind of only really crushes on Chopper because she's cute, because she finds him cute. Excuse me, I keep burping. I'm you. And that's really it. And the author thing, it has to do with the combat system. No, I thought it more has to do with the fact that Jumper is just a flat character in the first two stories. We're not given any. One of the things when it comes to a chosen one story is we have to be given some reason to care about the character's journey. And in the first two stories, where I'm just not, I just find no reason to care about Chopper. Where he just shows up, says, "I'm gonna do it," and he does it. Like, and combined with the fact that he doesn't really have any character development in the first one. He has like a minor thing in Crystal Stars. It's on the right track, but it's still not there in the sense that Chopper is still largely a flat character. He's just really going through the motions. Reading through those two stories, I'm legit not given a reason to care about his journey. I'm not given a reason to care about his character, or we're not given any reason to say that, oh yeah, he is the chosen one. It feels very artificial and not natural and forced, and it really doesn't help in these two stories that the combat sequences, what the author did say was what I was trying to insinuate, in the fact that it was turn based, so everyone was just standing around, just taking turns, jumping on each other, and that felt kind of awkward. That's his own problem. That again, Super actually fixed, but we're actually the point I'm trying to make with why I brought this up is in Super, we're absolutely given a reason to care. The beginning part of the story doesn't even have to. It's basically setting the tone and setting the stakes, because the opening of the story has T'Pol instead of Chopper. So Chopper doesn't even show up at the beginning. It's T'Pol. He goes to this like this hidden temple where a dark scepter is held, the big weapon that he uses throughout the story. He grabs it, a defense system comes up, he basically destroys the defense system, he leaves, he wants to test out the scepter, so he basically takes it out on the first thing he sees, which happens to be Tipani and Bloomier. He basically uses a scepter, basically shoots a laser through Tipani, nearly killing her and teleporting her out, causing Bloomier to get depressed, turn back into Count Bleck as he's trying to search for her. And then we're introduced to Chopper. So that's a big difference between this story and the previous two stories. Is where the first thing we see is the stakes. We're given what the big thing is, because Chappelle also has the dark prognosis. We're given the stakes and the setting of what's going to happen. Him killing Tepani, causing Black to depress and turn back into Black, and him realizing that he want to destroy everything, and then leaving. And that gives us enough reason to care that when Chopper gets tricked by Ciprol into going the flip side, because that's what happens, we're given stakes. We're given a reason to care. And then over the course of the story, you just get sucked into Chopper's arc, because Chopper actually has an arc. He has an arc. Like, he starts out as he has a character. He's basically, instead of focusing on the heroic side, he focus on this story focuses on the fact he's still a kid. He's a kid. He jokes like a kid. He makes snarky comics. He does bad puns. Granted, he does bad puns in the previous stories. They don't feel natural. They just feel like they're. Not to mention the first story. Half the time, I thought they came from one of his partners, the Mom. But in this story, he jokes around. He has a really dumb comment for everything, which actually reminds me of myself. Like if you ever meet me in real life, like, which I doubt, because everyone probably lives in like other countries or other states. I have a comment for everything. I have a dumb, stupid comment for everything, and so I instantly connect with Chopper because he makes a dumb, stupid comment about everything. But a big part of Chopper's character arc and character growth is the fact that he is naive. And this is something I actually brought up in like what I would do to fix the first two Paper Chopper stories. And I brought up a big point. It's like, well, you have him being gullible, you have him being naive. Focus on that naivete. And this story does exactly that. A big part of Chopper's character on the naivete is a simple fact that he's too trusting. He's basically acting like Timpani. Like Timpani believes everyone deserves to live. Everyone deserves to be happy. And a big part of that, channeling it through Chopper, is his interactions with T'Pol. With Chopper thinking that T'Pol, unlike the villains of the previous two stories, the Shadow King, Maquano, Robo Chopper, any of that, he believes that deep inside T'Pol has a heart, because he sees something in T'Pol that can be redeemed, that can be saved. And T'Pol is basically playing Chopper like a fiddle most of the time, because it's like, maybe I might. Maybe. No. Why? Because I'm evil. No, I don't believe you. You have a heart in there somewhere. Shoot yourself. Bye. and a big focus on it is learning that he's still, like, ultimately it boils down to is him realizing at the end of the day he's still a kid. He's still a kid who's still learning everything about the world. He's been mostly lonely all of his life. He still has Flyer, but he lost his parents at a young age. He saved the world. He lives on his own for such a long time, but he still has friends, and ultimately the story is trying to point out the fact that he's still a kid, and as a kid he's going to make mistakes and he's going to have to learn from them. And I think that's a very, very realistic arc for someone like Chopper, someone whose whole purpose in the previous two stories was that it focused more on Chopper the hero rather than Chopper the kid in this story. And I think that makes Chopper more relatable as a character, because we see Chopper when he's vulnerable. We see Chopper, like, actually expressing care and sorrow. Like when Lovey gets kidnapped, he he actually, he feels bad over the fact that he let someone who couldn't defend themselves get kidnapped by RoboChopper because RoboChopper has to show up. Unlike in the first story where RoboChopper kidnaps Bao, he just feels so stiff and unnatural, and you're just like, but in this story, he shows that he cares about Lumpy. There's, which leads to another thing that the author fixed. There's less characters. There's only like, in terms of main characters, you basically got Chopper, his partner, Tipro, and I guess you can say Lovey. Lovey shows up just enough that you can kind of qualify her as a main character. She doesn't really. She only shows up in like the chapters that involve Shade, which is like a main villain, but I guess you can barely lump Lovey in there, barely. Um, and everything kind of seems inconsequential, like especially near the end where it focuses on Chopper and Tipral's relationship and focuses on both of their character growths. Like I said, we'll talk about Tipral later, but it just feels more natural, and it feels like the author finally knew what they wanted to try and do with Chopper as a character. Make him a naive kid, make him someone who needs to experience growth and be duped and learn that he's still a kid, and at the end of the day he still has to learn these things. He doesn't have to learn how to be a hero. He has to learn that he's still young. He'll learn like all this non-hero stuff, like learning how that people might deceive you, basically all this natural adult stuff that feels very at home with a character like him, and that actually makes Chopper very relatable. And I was actually near the end, I was getting so hooked into the story because I actually started to like Chopper a lot. And spoiler on an aside, I still have the OC tier list. I moved Chopper from like D to B because of the story, because his role in the story is that good. But yeah, Chopper was a great main character. Like the author fixed everything about him in this story that was wrong with him in the first story. He's more emotive. He has a genuine personality. He's very funny. He has a better connection with the partners he's with. Most importantly, we're given a reason to care about his journey. We're given a absolute reason to care of, and to see and it shows that unlike the previous stories, he's earned his fate as the chosen one in this story. And that's all you can really say about it. He's a good character. The rest of the characters, I love Kirby. He's hilarious. Honestly, I would like to see a story of just Kirby and Chopper just hanging out and just doing dumb stuff together, because the author basically makes them work so well together. That's like, oh my god, give me just a dumb story of just Chopper and Kirby just goofing off. Like it could be something stupid, like them just walking around, and the author will probably make it work with these two because of how well he's written these two together. Yeah, Mario and Luigi. I'm not a fan of the fact that the author writes Mario as like still the silent guy. It really doesn't work in this context. It's also kind of really weird because everyone's talking in quotation marks when Mario's talking like it's like Mario colon and then the words. Kind of weird. It's really weird. It kind of worked in Crystal Stars because that's supposed to be like foreshadowing the fact that Mario's been possessed, but no such thing happens here. Luigi, not a big fan of Luigi. I mean, it works. He's functional, but it's Luigi. The other really didn't do as much work with Luigi as say everyone else. That's kind of the fact. Sonic, I like Sonic except for the fact that the author kept just kept the obnoxious habit of him constantly complaining about water whenever it showed up. I get it. Sonic the Hedgehog is canonically hydrophobic. That is an actual character trait of Sonic. He is actually afraid of water. He doesn't really like going in water. And I also like the detail of Sonic kind of. I like the little headcanon that the author kind of introduced. The fact that it's like, oh, it's not just me who doesn't swim, who can't swim. It's all the Mobians who can't swim, except for the aquatic Mobians. But all the Mobians can't swim. I actually think that's kind of hilarious. That's kind of completely debunked by the fact that Tails can actually swim in Sonic. I just find that funny. It's like, no, all the Mobians can swim. It's like, Sonic, why am I swimming? Tails, no, stop swimming. Stop swimming, Sonic. Okay. I'm sorry. I just find that so hilarious. And then there's Blade. Blade is all right. Blade has a defined role. Basically, Blade kind of plays a straight man to Chopper. That's basically his role. Like Kirby's supposed to be the guy that like goes along. It's like, like rubbing shoulders, like doing the comedy stuff. But every time when Chopper is with Blade, Blade's like, knock it off. And just like with Kirby, it actually works so well. As a character, I don't care too much about Blade, mainly because he's an OC that's introduced in the first story, and the author kind of makes the same mistake with Blade, like he did with Chopper in the first two stories. We're not given any reason to particularly care about Blade. Like the beginning of the story when T'Pol traps all the main characters in the story. It's like, well, you're all great heroes, and I'm wondering, like, wait, what is Blade doing there? Like, who? What? Like, I don't even know this character. Okay, fine. Chopper, understandable. T'Pol has like a personal hatred grudge against Chopper. Mario, Kirby, Luigi, Sonic. All right, they're all great heroes, and so it makes sense why T'Pol would want to get rid of them. But then there's Blade, who's just there. Like, what? What? Why are you there? I don't care about you. Another big thing with Blade's character is the author tried to do some kind of like mini story with him involving him, his brother who was in hell, and their sensei. It doesn't work because mainly because we're just not given the full story of that backstory. I think I'll talk about it in the end. But I'm not a fan of this mini story with Blade and his brother Knife. That's just me. On the bad guy side, we have three main bad guys. We have T'Pol, we have Dementio, and then we have Shade. T'Pol, not yet. Dementio is written really well. I actually like the fact that the author kind of highlights the fact that, well, the whole reason why the events actually kick into motion is actually Dementio having a massive failsafe. Like, oh, if I die, I write my name in the dark prognosis. So that way, if someone picks it up, they can revive me, and I can do it again. That's actually really clever. I actually like that little twist over the fact that Dementio will plan that much ahead that he basically made it so that he can't really die because it's implied that the dark prognosis can't really be destroyed. And even then, based at the beginning, because this story takes place 5 months after Super Paper Mario, it's implied that Blumiere had the dark prognosis. T'Pol took it, and at the end of the story, it's implied that the prognosis didn't really destroy it. It's more just somewhere hidden. So in a way, Dementio still hasn't been fully stopped. That's fine. Which actually kind of fits Dementio's character. He's basically just an omnicidal maniac who just wants to kill everyone. I also like the idea of like, it's like, you want to take over the world? No, I want to make everyone wear ponchos. And also bow to me. Okay, that's taking over the world. No, it's not. Nah. No, it's not. Yeah, but anyway, Dementio is a great villain. I like Dementio. I like what the author did with him, expanded upon him without trying to, in a way that seems very natural. And then we get to the opposite with Shade. Okay, okay, so I'm gonna be real. I don't like Shade. Honestly, there's one other problem bigger than Shade. I'll get to it, but I want to bring this up. Shade is horribly written. I don't like Shade. I think it's what's the problem with Shade? Well, Shade is introduced as a three-act villain. So basically, he shows up one time in each act as like the secondary big bad. Like he's like, but despite the fact Dementio's technically the secondary big bad, it goes to Prawl, Dementio, and Shade. And the pros are his reveal at the end that he's supposed to be like interdimensional eldritch parasite that basically infests people from all races and all dimensions and basically causes them to cause so much destruction, and then when it's done with the body, it just drains it and then moves on. I think that's a really cool idea. Like that's such a really badass idea. Like, oh, you don't even fathom my real form because he's literally just a parasite that goes through dimensions and kills it and just wants to cause dimensions, and no one really knows what he really looks like because he's like, no, you can't understand my actual form. And even when the author tries to do the real form in his third boss fight, it's implied that's not actually his real form. It's just him trying to basically disgust and scare the good guys into intimidation, which I think is actually a pretty neat twist. It's like, aha, I have this actual form. No. It's not my actual form. I'm just doing this because I want you to be afraid. Let me kill you. But the main reason, but that's just it as far as the pros. What's the cons? Everything else. Shade only shows up 3 times. Uh, his boss fights are basically just copy pasting from the final boss from Castle Crashers. If anything, this is probably like, I know I made a big deal about, oh, the author better incorporated the other fandoms and other medias into the story. This is the one exception. The one exception. And basically goes, he gets a shield, and then he flies, and then he gets another, and then he turns it, and then he turns into something, and then he flies again, and then he grabs a sword, and then he paralyzes everyone except for Chopper, and then he just basically, attack, hit each other, and then Chopper wins. It's so drastically off, like compared to everything else, which feels natural and has a neat progression. This one is just so stilted and off that you can immediately tell that it's the author's trying to force the Castle Crasher elements into it. It's so badly written. Like, it's not even the Castle Crusher elements as a whole, because he has the Necromancer from Castle Crushers as his main element, and the Necromancer is really well really well blended into the story. Like, he's really well done in this story. It's really just Shade himself that's so badly written. He has some, like, the first time he shows up, he's just like there, like, because like, oh yeah, Dark Doom was my brother. I'm talking to Love Beast because okay, so you're just like, okay, you're continuing a plot point from Crystal Stars. All right, I appreciate it. And then the second point, he manipulates a NIMBY who had a crush on Love V into evil, but the NIMBY had a change of heart because he realized he was hurting Love V and he didn't want to do that. And then they fought. That's fine too. And then the final time they fight him, they introduce the Stardies. They go really hard into. Hold on. had to silence my phone. I forgot to silence my phone. They go really hard into Pearl's backstory. Like he merges to Pearl's home into his new base, and he brings like all these Skeletites and brings the Cyclops from Castle Crashers into the fray. And then it's revealed that he's a parasite, and it just all falls apart. I mean, he wasn't really that well written. He's just so painfully generic. In this story, which has a lot of really good characters, even the weaker characters like Sonic and Luigi, he stands out by being so badly written. It's just it just it's just such a jarring opposite of everything else that goes around him. Like like when I first got to his first boss fight, and like the moment it started, he brought the shield. It's like, oh no, he's this is just Castle Crush, isn't it? Like, I know, because the fight against Necromancer was well done. All the fights against Necromancer are actually well done. And then it's just so jarring, and he's just given no time to really care, because despite the fact the story tries to big him up as like an actual big threat on the level to Brawl, but it's like, I don't care. Like, does he have a character? No. Does he have a plan? No. Is there any reason we should care about him? No. No, he's just there. Why? Just why? It's so surprising why there's so much good, and then this is just a 3-part blanket of just him, of just some black hole of like, here I am, I got a sword and I'm here to annoy you. And I don't know, like, I really don't. I and I don't even I don't know. Now, moving on. I don't want to drag too much on this. Moving on to the pacing and the sentence, pacing and yeah, pacing and the pacing. Pacing is actually really well done. Every chapter follows a five act structure. Basically, chapter 1-1, chapter 1-2, over and over again. Interlude. It follows a nice pace because it gives you it's an escalation. Like the reason I didn't particularly mind the final couple of chapters being so long is because there was a nice escalation. Everything progressed. Like, you could see you had all these worlds to explore. You had the void hanging upon them, and you see they were trying to basically still give us time. The author gave every world as much attention as it could, and trying to tell its own little mini story, but also still trying to give that sense of urgency. And so that leads into the Comet of Darkness, which is the final fight against a Shade. It gives its time to basically try and finish off some of the elements. Although, oddly enough, Bowser and Eggman are there, and they're like, what? Okay. And when it gets to the void, that's so long because it's trying to give this sense of grandeur. Like, this is the big finale of the trilogy. It's finishing up everything, and then for the most part, the other thing I didn't like about the void was the Mimi part. I just think that was bad, but that's just me. Everything has a sense of urgency, but also takes the time to give us to explore the world, explore everything it has to offer. Give us time to care about some of the characters and Samur's Kingdom, because I don't give a shit about Samur's Kingdom. That's just me. It's really just me. Give us the sense of urgency, but also have certain areas being like more laid back, like more goofy, more threatening. Every single world that they go to has gives us a different feeling. Like Like you really get into the meat and potatoes of falling in love with these new locales, and the pacing reflects that of trying to invoke these different feelings. Like in the Con of Darkness, for the most part, is trying to give this sense of despair because it's going into the backstory of T'Pol a lot and all these feelings that they're supposed to invoke, and compare that to something like Lineland Road, which is like the first world where Chopper and Tippy they go visit and get the 3D flipping powers, and it's more goofy and more kiddish, and it and the pacing reflects perfectly reflects that, and that's really well done. And that's the same thing with like the structure, with the grammar. I think there was a couple of grammar errors here and there, some around the beginning, but it comes ironed out. That's fine. Uh, with the pacing, yeah, no, I'm combining the grammar with the pacing. Don't mind me. There are some bloat parts of the story. There is the badges. Not a fan. Honestly, the badges. Badges need to be here. No. Chopper's partner's coming. They need to be here. No, I get there's a purpose because Mimi copies their appearances and abilities and she fights with them, but they're just there for the most part. And also Shadow. Honestly, I don't even know what to talk about with Shadow. Like Shadow is like completely just so there. I don't even know the whole purpose of it. I'll talk about them a bit. But the pacing is top notch and gives a sense and gives you those vibes of trying to evoke these different emotions and all that. And that's the bulk of the review. Sorry if I'm rusty. I literally spent like a month reading the story because of how long it is, and also because it's Christmas time at my job, so I didn't have enough time to actually focus on that. So there's that. Would I recommend this story? Easy yes. Like it's so miraculous how the first two stories were so bad in my opinion, and then you read this story and it's so good on the level of the author just completely over delivering. It's just something else, and the feelings he managed to invoke in the person reading, getting connected to these characters, getting connected to these worlds, and all this, and invoking all these different emotions at once, the sense of wonder, the sense of fear, the sense of adventure, of sadness, of despair, of enlightenment. Everything just gels and resonates so well that it's just astounding, and I really, really love it. Favorite part? T'Pol. Everything, everything about T'Pol, bar none, is the best. Is the best part of the story. I kind of like T'Pol in Crystal Stars. He wasn't bad. He's supposed to be like the Shadow clone, basically Shadow to Chopper's Sonic. But you can tell that the author, even in Crystal Stars, the author had something more to do with him. It's like, I want to do more with this character. And this is the story that did it. So let me put this in perspective. T'Prol's character is in his backstory. T'Prol was an experiment created by scientists in a space station in the middle of space by order of the Shadow King and Queen. However, T'Prol the scientists basically overloaded him, and they needed limiters on his wrist in order to contain his power. However, when the scientists woke T'Prol up, they didn't have enough time to put the limiters on him, killing all the scientists. So T'Prol, when he woke up, there was no one around. He was lonely. And then he wandered some more, and he found a little girl named Timpani. And she became his friend. They played hide and seek, they played tag, they played all these little games. But time happened, and Timpani grew up. T'Prol did not. because he unable to age. He mentally got wiser, but physically he still looks like a kid. Eventually, Tipani became an adult and met Blumiere, and we all know what happened with that. T'Pral was fine with letting her go as long as they were still friends. However, Blumiere's father nearly killed Timpani and tossed her into the multiverse, where eventually she became Timpy because she lost her memory and all that. Blumiere got pissed, grabbed the Dark Prognosis, which actually, spoilers in the story, Demento actually specifically wrote that because he was very much aware of T'Pral's existence, and so his whole plan was actually T'Pral getting the Prognosis. It's just Black grabbing it, kind of put a wrench in his plan, and he tried to work around it. There's that. T'Pral and Blumiere were pissed. Blumiere killed his father and wiped out almost the entire of his clan except for one other member, who T'Pral found. And when the guy was actually very racist towards him, T'Pral killed him, which is actually implied. Who is It's implied that that like in like various points of the story, we are introduced to like a guy like a Grim Reaper like character, and it's implied that this is the person that T'Pral actually killed, and he's just come back as a Grim Reaper, and T'Pral's the one that killed him again. But let me finish. Just like Brimlier, T'Pral wandered the multiverse looking for Timpani. However, T'Pral felt anger. He felt rage and bitterness towards the entire multiverse as a whole. But time still moved on. And while he never let go of that anger and bitterness, over time, he slowly forgot about Timpani. And he slowly forgot about the circumstances around that. But he never forgot about that sense of anger and bitterness. And so when Chopper meets him in Crystal Stars, he's just angry at the world, angry at everything, but he doesn't know why. Because so much time has passed that he's forgotten about it. And that's a big part of T'Pral's character in Super, that sense of slowly remembering those memories, slowly having those memories awaken because so much time has passed and he's clearing the cobwebs. And he's slowly realizing that Timpani's still alive and he still has something to fight for. But he's so consumed by that sense of bitterness that he wants, and loneliness for over 1,000 years, that he just wants everything to end because he thinks ending the multiverse, killing everyone, will at least give him that sense of joy, that one last drop of joy to make him smile and make him cry. And I cried at the end when in the final battle between Chopper and T'Pral, where T'Pral remembers everything, and he sees Chopper crying, and he's literally over Chopper, about to kill him, and then he turns the hand towards himself, and basically turns a gigantic blast on himself, and then Timpani and Blumiere try to stop the void. T'Pral still conscious, still alive, and tells him you can't. The only person who can stop the void is the person who made it in the first place, which is T'Pral. And so he has, in one hand, he has the scepter. In the other hand, he has the prognosis. He starts crying. He smiles for the first time in the story, realizing he found his family. He found the joy he has not had for over 1,000 years. And he realizes that he can't. He deserves to have some sense of redemption. And he sacrifices himself. It was wonderfully tragic. and it was it was beautiful. And I just and seeing T'Prol's character explored in this way, because you can tell you can tell that it's very much on the template of Shadow and Maria Robotnik, but so much is done that it almost you can only really tell it's based off that dynamic as just as the template. And it's like, I want to take this in a different direction instead of Maria Shadow being traumatized by Maria's death, have and Shadow kind of being kept in hibernation, so he's always had those memories and still retains those memories. When he wakes up, T'Pol suffers and grows embittered and hateful at the world because he lost the only thing that actually ever made him happy, his only friend. And seeing his relationship with Chopper grow over the course of the story, of bitter enemies to like something of a begrudging respect. Like at the end, you can tell you have that sense that T'Pol at least respects Chopper on some level, on on even a minor level, and Chopper trying to sympathize with T'Pol and trying to say that you have a heart. You have like you're not truly evil. You're just a broken person, and you just need a friend. You just need someone. I'm actually crying right now over remembering it and seeing that ending with T'Pol broken, nearly dead, and everyone crying. It moved me. It truly it brought a tear to my eye with how and that's I guess you could say that's the greatest sense of a character's worth, like when they die, and and you feel for them, and you start crying over their death. That I say that's the greatest. That is the greatest mark of approval, better than any sort of verbal communication. Just see those tears down your eyes. That the emotion that they revoke, not revoke, invoke, and you see those tears, and you see all the care, the passion the author put into this character. I just it it just capped off a really really amazing story, and especially at the end where Temporal's spirit he's watching Chopper from down go into a party and then just fading away. It's just a wonderful. It was just a tragic way to end the character. And I think it T'Pol kind of made the story. I honestly think if T'Pol wasn't as written as well as he was, the story probably wouldn't have been as good. Like this story, by and large, was carried by how well written and how tragic T'Prol's character was. And I really wouldn't have it any other way. He's such a great he was such a great antagonist that and a great character that I honestly think anyone, even if you don't read the first two stories, just go read the story just for Brawl because of just how well handled he is in the story. I don't really have anything more to say about him. But the show must go on. Sorry if you can actually, I was actually crying talking about that. What would I fix? There's not much I would fix compared. Again, that's another thing the author fixed about the story. There's not really a lot of. Pretty much almost everything is fixed. There are a couple things I would fix. This first off, get rid of the badges. They offer nothing. Get rid of get rid of the partners. Have them don't have them show up in flip side. They offer nothing. Uh, get rid. Shadow is something weird because because I can't even say if the execution was bad or not because I really don't know what the execution even was. Like okay, Shadow shows up like imitating Kirby, saying, "Oh, you're the sidekick in this story. You deserve to be the main character." Like, all right, is this going somewhere? And then he just disappears, and then he shows up at the very end, saying, "Oh, I built these clones, and you're gonna fight these clones." I'm like, then what was the? And I'm like, what was the point of all this? What was the point of Shadow? Like, I don't even know what the execution was good or bad because I just don't know. Like, what was the execution supposed to be? It's like if he showed up more often in the second act, maybe I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if there's like some way to expand upon Shadow's character, maybe like okay, so the Grim Reaper was supposed to be the last member of the Tribe of Darkness that T'Pral killed. Have him be Shadow. Like you just say like, oh, I want to kill. You can have this whole thing being like, oh, he wants to try and possess one of the characters because he wants to, and replace them because it's like, oh, I want to kill T'Pral. So that way, so these guys are supposed to kill him and beat him. So I'm gonna possess one of them or replace one of them. So that way, I can kill them. Ha 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 ha. You can do something dumb like that. Uh, Now we have the two big things. First one, Shade. Honestly, with Shade, I honestly, I have no idea what to do with him because he's such an enigma of the character in the fact that he's supposed to be an Eldritch Abomination, but he's not. He's badly written, but at the same time, he barely shows up. But on the other hand, he's supposed to be the third main villain. So I really don't. I'm really drawing a blank on how to handle Shade, except for make him the villain of his own story. And just replace the chapters where he's the villain with someone else. That's the only thing I can really think of. Like if you continue this or do the reboot because I know because the author informed me that the author wants to do a reboot of this trilogy. But I don't because I don't know what to do with Shade. I like the big question about the story is I don't know what to do with Shade because the parasite idea really cool and I really want to see that explored more. Granted, you can't explore it because it's an Eldritch Abomination. Their whole purpose is you're not supposed to understand it. But I think with the parasite idea is just a matter of it being too late because they only reveal the parasite thing right before they fight him for the third time, like right before that. Yeah, I think Now that I think about it, the best way to do it is just make him the villain of his own story. Like make a new story, have him be the villain, and then just work from there. Because I honestly don't know how to incorporate him better with this. Because he's a type of character where he's either the main villain or he's not included at all. Because he just screams the big bad of the whole story. But if you make him the big bad of this story, that diminishes to Paul's character, which you really, really do not want. And yeah, I think that's it with that. Just remove it from the story. Make him a villain of his own story. Hell, do a T'Pral spinoff and have him be the Shade and have Shade be the villain of that story. Maybe like after the story, T'Pral ends up in the underwear. He talks to Queen Shadis, gives him a chance to like you can be we'll revive you because we understand we looked through your mind, and you can also take that chance to kind of go more into his backstory, deeper into like the comparisons with Shadow because in the story, he is borrowing a lot from Shadow, the time power, the spheres and the blast, and he also even has the shoes. Shadow has his own spinoff. I don't see why T'Pol won't have his own spinoff, and just have it be him doing errands for Queen Shadis, and him finding out, like, going back to his home where the comet is. Yeah, you can do a lot of stuff with that. But I did mention there was two big problems with the story. One was Shade. What was the other? Tipani. I wanted to save this for last because I think it is worth something talking about. I don't like how Timpani was handled in the story. I think Timpani was handled very, very poorly in the story. And Super, she's handled phenomenally because part of her thing is the fact that she had amnesia. And in essence, in the story, she kind of has amnesia, but not forceful amnesia. It's just so much time has passed that, she just naturally forgot about it, which is actually realistic. Over time, people are going to forget about stuff, so it makes a lot of sense that this would happen. Um, but once Tippy leaves and goes with Lumiere and fixes the void and basically deals with the void the first time, um, they're gone for like one chapter, and then they come back in a wand where Chopper can just wave the wand around, and it's so goofy and so off-putting. Like, it fits, like the author made it work, but as the story went on and we got more into T'Pol's backstory, it just left me wondering, like, why isn't Tipani and Lumiere actually with the main characters? Like, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to have them actually show up in Flipside and have them join them, because Lumiere would have an actual reason to go in with them. Dementio's still alive. It's like, I want to kill that clown. And Tipani would actually want to go with them because, hey, she's clearing up the cobwebs in her mind. She's starting to remember all the happy moments for T'Pol, and it's like, no, I want to help T'Pol. Instead, they're just somewhere, and are just there, and they don't even show up they don't even show up in the third act until the very, very end. Like right before T'Pol sacrifices himself, that's when they show up. I'm like, that is so badly done. That's even worse than Shade. Like you don't like. We need to give a reason why we should care about Timpani, because we're not given a reason to care about Timpani. No, that's not the right thought process. What I meant to say was, we're not given any reason to wonder why Timpani is not going. Like, okay, they had their honeymoon. T'Pol interrupts, nearly kills Timpani, then leaves. Lumiere becomes Count Black, and then they go and fix the void, and they just stop showing up. Um, and then I don't really know what to say about this. It's just even then it's such an easy fix, because the main reason I think it should have worked more is the fact that Timpani and Lumiere should have just joined the crew. Like, have them be two of the heroes instead of, say, some of them. Like, you can easily do like a pair thing. Like, they have like their mages, Timpani being like the white mage and Lumiere being like the black mage. Have them replace one of the heroes, preferably Blade, maybe either Blade or Luigi. Mario, Sonic, and Kirby are just too important, and but either have their reason to stay. You can explore Blade's backstory, but he doesn't. But he's the one who feels the least like actually being in the group. Also, or Luigi, he doesn't want to be there. Like, and you can easily just make a thing where he's like, oh, he's not the true hero. Goodbye, and kind of have them and just have Lumiere and Timpani be like a duo pair. There's also the fact that there's going to be a reboot. If the reboot does happen and the author does get to the story, I think the story just needs the least amount of changes. Honestly, I'd be happy if Lumiere and Timpani are just more involved in the story. That's really it. Just hell, how more emotionally charged would it be if, like, in the final battle of the battle. It's like instead of Chopper versus T'Pol, it's Chopper and Timpani against T'Pol because Blumiere sacrifices himself to fight one of them. Whoever he replaces with either O-Chunks or let's just do Mr. L. Like they somehow get Mr. L back, and it's like okay, then if they fight Blumiere fights Mr. L. How more emotional would it be if Timpani is right there and she's trying to reason with T'Pol, but T'Pol doesn't want to hurt her, and you see this internal struggle with him of him trying to hurt Chopper, and Timpani is just trying to be in the middle, just trying to get in the way. Like that would be more emotion. That would just turn on the waterworks even more. Like, come on, it's such an easy fix. Just have them be more involved in the story. That's it. That's it. But yeah, that is my review of Super Paper Chopper. I think this is just a story that is just over delivered and blew me away of how good it is. And I don't really have anything more to say about it. Went over an hour. Went over an hour on it. That shows how much I care about the story. See you next time. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and